Welcome back to part 2 of CSS tutorial. If you followed along from the last time, this is where we left off. I can leave a link in the description and you can go there if you haven't seen the first part. So we have a container with 6 blocks and we have set display to grid, and we have 2 rows 200 pixels each, and we have 3 columns 200 pixels each. Now what you can do here is, instead of doing the whole repeating yourself, you can actually use the word repeat and then give it the number of columns you want. So we wanted 3 columns and a comma, and then your size 200 pixels, and that will do the same thing. You can also do mix and match, so you can do 2 columns of 200 pixels and then make the last one say 400 pixels, and you see block 3 or column, the third column here is taking up 400 pixels. There's different sizing units that you can use. So you can also use fractional units. So a fractional unit would be, I'll just show you there. So you could do 1 fractional unit, and then you could do 3 fractional units, and then you could do 1 fractional unit again. And as you can see, it divides it up proportionately to your fraction. So if I make this 2, it's pretty cool that way. It takes up as much space as it can and divides it up into fractional units. The other thing you can use is percentages. So instead of 2FR here, I could use like 30%. So this would be 30%, this column here. I'll just go into the debugger here and show you a little thing about the percentages. So 30% will take up 30% of the complete grid. So I turn on the grid here. You can see, and I'll go down to layout and I'll turn on the track sizes. So as you can see, 30%, our grid is, our container is 1000 pixels, and the actual so as you can see from the inspector, 30% of 1000 pixels is 300 pixels. And then the fractional units take up the rest of it. So there's a, so if I just change this to 50% and just make this 1FR as well, so we've got the first 2 columns are 1FR, and then the last column is 50%, which is 500 pixels. So it takes up 500. It takes up the full 50% of the actual space. Whereas you can see here the gaps in between, the fractional units take into account the actual gap of 20 pixels each, because we've got 2 30 pixels and 2 30 pixels, but the percentage just takes into account the full width. So that's just something to be aware of. Now you can also position the grids. So I'll just put this back to FR again, and I'll just make it even so we can see it easier. You can also position, so just say I want to put block 1 over here where block 3 is. So I'll just use SAS here. So to use SAS, you can select item 1 by just doing an and sign, putting your dash and then your 1, and anything after that is selecting item 1. So if you want to put 1 where block 3 is, the way you do it is you select your column, so it's grid column, so grid column, and then you select the line number, so the line number 3 to the line number 4, and you do that by just doing 3/4, and it puts block 1 in that column. Now the reason it's created 2 columns with nothing in it here is because the algorithm for grid actually tries to keep these elements in order, in the order you have them. So if I specify the row in this and put it to row 1, row 2, it will put those back where they should be. The other thing is you can also I forgot, you can actually use a thing called span. So say I want block 4, I'll just create another one, block 4, to span to go from column 1 all the way to column 2. So you could do grid column, and then the column is 1, and we want it to go, so you span 2. So you can see here block 4 now is spanning 2 columns, and then block 5 and block 6 is actually after going on to a new row, even though we haven't specified the row up here in our specifications. We've only got 2 rows, 200 pixels each. You notice that it's created a new row here, and that's the default. It creates rows automatically as it needs it. It's just given it 66 pixel high row because we haven't specified what to do with the actual rows, the rows that are automatically created. Now you can change that behavior by doing by setting it to, so grid auto rows. You can also do columns with this as well, and you can set that to whatever size you want. So just say we want the exact same size, 200 pixels. Excuse me. That would actually, the auto rows that are generated now by the auto placement algorithm will put, it will give it 200 pixels. We could also just change it up like 100 pixels. So now it's half the size, the auto generated rows. That also applies with the columns as well. So columns, we could set that to 100 pixels. It won't make any difference here now because we haven't set the, it's still doing auto generated rows. But if we set grid auto flow, so flow will tell it what to do, and we do see columns. Sorry, it's column, typo, column. So So now that I've set that to column, so grid auto flow tells the automatic placement algorithm to set it to either columns or rows. The default is that it sets it to rows, so that's why we don't set this up here. So if I comment this out, it will just automatically place the extra elements that it doesn't have rows set up for as a row. But you can also change that to columns, so that will come in handy later on when you're doing mobile responsive web apps that scale down to mobile. That's just another thing there for you to be aware of. And I'd say you could just give that a go yourself and have a mess around with it. And I'll see you in the next one. We'll do something more challenging. Okay, like, subscribe if you got anything from this, and I'll see you in the next one.